welcome to My Life. We're very privileged to have an old friend of ours here at the station, J.R. Cundiff, with us to talk about his life and bring us up to date on what he's up to. J.R. has led a very interesting life. For one thing, he's lived in Oakland County for over 30 years, originally from Kentucky. And he's also been part of the Carpenters Union for well over 60 years and has worked at just about every major construction that has taken place in our area here. Not just our area, but several other areas around the country. So we're glad to have you with us, J.R.
Thank you, John.
You know, lately we've been seeing in the news a lot about some of these big construction projects coming down, like old stadiums and old shopping centers, and like the Silver Dome
they're
coming
going to
down.
tear the palace down.
The Palace?
Yeah, I worked on that, and they're going to tear it down.
When you've worked on a project that's taken so long to put up, like one of those,
Right?
and then you see it torn down,
Yeah.
what goes through your mind?
Progress, I'm sorry to say, but it is. I mean, money controls the world.
Yeah.
So what it is, somebody wanted to buy the property, wanted to put some, they'll probably put a mall or something up there when they tear the palace down, you know?
But you know, I'm sure that when you look at some of these places that you've worked on, you could probably tell a story about every corner of the building because you had something to do with it.
Right,
And then all of a sudden, boom, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, I know it. The only building that I didn't work on right, you know, in the present was the Silver Dome. I wasn't working in Michigan. I was working out of town.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't work on that. But I don't know. I've had so many buildings that like you said, that I worked on that have been torn down or just gotten rid of. Now I hear they're going to tear and build one of the tallest buildings between Chicago and New York, right here on the old Hudson plant.
Really?
The old Hudson building, I mean downtown. It's going to be
Dan Gilbert's building.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be somewhere between the Empire State Building and the Sears Tower, or whatever the one that's the tallest. Well, it's not Sears anymore, but Sears Tower in Chicago. I think it's 102 or something like that.
Wow. So you wish you weren't retired anymore and you could still work on that?
Only when I pass the job, John. You know, and I think, boy, I'd like to be out there. But then when you have to mess with the traffic today, you have to, and we done things, and when I was working in construction, that today they'd probably throw us off of the job. I'm serious. I worked outside the building with no safety belts on, and finally they made me put on a safety belt and tied a rope from column to column and put one of those slide things where I could move. I was scared to death that the rope was going to break. Now they have to have a safety belt on to drive a forklift truck in Home Depot. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, JR, not only that, but you know, when we were kids, we rode in cars without car seats.
And not only that, we used to jump from coal shed to coal shed when in the neighborhood when I was a kid.
There you go.
I don't know how, I told my son-in-law the other day, I don't know how in hell we lived. Today they got to ride bikes with helmets, shoulder pads, all this stuff. Hell, we done everything that was crazy.
Wow. I'd like to take you back a little bit and talk about your life. You're originally from Louisville, Kentucky, is that correct?
Yes, right in Louisville, Kentucky.
Did you ever try and trace your ancestry to find out who came to the United States first?
No, not first, but my uncle on my mother's side lived to be 97 years old. And so he was born before my mother, so he was probably born in maybe 95 or so. My mother was born in 1899. And according to him, his name was Pilkington, Pilkenton. But according to him, one of my ancestors was what they called a Peel of Kensington or something like that. And they changed the name to Pilkington. But we are supposed to be related to Pocahontas too, so I don't know. I don't have any proof of that.
So you think you have some American Indian?
I think I do
Blood in you.
some, but not enough to, you know.
Well, see, you need to run one of those DNA tests
I don't know.
from Ancestry or one of those places. You might be surprised.
I don't really care who I'm from. I know. I think
you might get
basically-
a free night at a casino or something like
Yeah,
that.
sure. I don't really care because
Go ahead.
I am who I am,
Sure.
and I think my mother's side was English, and I think my father's side might have been Irish or so. And there is a Cardiff, 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 England. Now, if they came over on a boat, they messed it up, looked like C-U-N instead of C-A-R, I don't know. So
did you get to know your uncle pretty well?
Oh, well, he lived on a farm about 70 miles from Louisville. I've seen him a few times, but he wrote poetry and stuff like that, which I still do today. I write poetry and I write songs and stuff like that.
Were you of an age and a maturity where you could sit down with him and talk to him about some of this
Well, he was the
stuff?
principal of the high school there in the little town. He was a school teacher, and then he was a principal. And he lived in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, which is just south of Fort Knox there, sort of. And he was a very educated man, very smart.
Were there any other teachers in your family?
No, not except, like I told you, my mother taught my dad, but 8th grade education back then was an 8th grade education.
Sure.
And we got some kids today in that 8th and 9th grade who can't even read.
Tell me about, you lived in the city when you were...
Right in the city,
when you
yes,
were
sir.
a boy,
Yes.
right? Was it a regular neighborhood? Was it a big old farm-type house?
No, it was right downtown apartments.
Ah,
And like I said before, being born in the Depression, we didn't have any money. Of course, we weren't the only ones. I wasn't feeling sorry for me, but we lived in a one room of the whole family. My sisters, I had 2 sisters and myself. My brother was usually gone from home. He was 10 years older than I was, but he was 17, he was married.
yeah.
But my sisters and I all slept in the same bed. But we didn't sleep long ways. We all slept across the bed. And Mom would sit up all night because Dad drove the cab at night. So then Mom and Dad would sleep during the day while we were at school.
Did you have any grandparents living nearby?
No, just the ones down on the farms. Both of them were about 70 miles away on farms.
70 miles away. So how often did you get to see them?
Maybe once a year for a while until I got a little older. Then I started driving down myself.
Did you?
I took my wife down there at one time, showed her the farm and everything. My grandfather on my mother's side was a blacksmith, and he had 120 acres down there. It's called a little town called Sonora, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's about 70 miles from Louisville. It's all just off I-70. It's 65 now.
Now, you were born in what year?
1931.
Okay. So this was during the height of the Depression, really,
Yes,
wasn't it?
It was, yes.
And what are some of your memories of what you did for fun during your youth? I mean, it was kind of tough. You didn't have a lot of options, did you?
Well, and I hate to laugh about it, but we didn't have any television, as you know. We couldn't afford a radio. If I wanted to listen to a radio or something, I went across the street to the neighbors.
Uh-huh.
And we listened to Captain Midnight, Jack Armstrong, and Lone Ranger, and all that, the old shows.
I want to talk more about that. We have to take a little break right now. So hold that thought,
Go ahead.
and you two, and we'll be right back.
There's a lot of history to Oxford. Hidden around every corner, deep in every crack, and sometimes right in front of you, waiting to be discovered. If you just dig a little, you'll find the great history of our beautiful town. Welcome to Historic Oxford.
Back with J.R. Cundiff here, just talking about your life during the Depression.
Yes.
You were born just right in the middle of the worst of the Great Depression, really, and we were talking about some of the things you remember doing as a child for fun.
Yeah. Well, we done a lot of street playing. I don't know if they even heard about it, but we used to play kick the can.
Mm-hmm.
We used to play Red Rover, and hide and seek and stuff like that. And we'd go out early in the morning, and then we'd stay out all day till the street lights came on. Then we had to be home.
And you were in downtown Louisville.
Right downtown Louisville.
Yeah.
On 2nd Street.
So did you have any favorite stores you used to wander in, or?
Oh, my sister and I used to go behind the old Piggly Wiggly, and the guy would throw food out and stuff, and we'd pick out the best stuff that he threw out and take home to eat. And one day my sister and I was over there, and the guy kind of took care of us, you know. He came out and he threw almost a whole bushel of green beans out.
He saw you there and knew
Yeah.
why you were there.
Yeah. And the little lady was picking the green beans and breaking them all. And my sister just reached in and grabbed a whole handful of them, filled up a basket, and we took them home. We gave green beans to our cousins, our neighbors, everybody. Everybody in the doggone we knew had green beans that night.
I've heard other people who've grown up during the Depression say that they really didn't realize they had it that bad because everybody had it the same way.
That's what I just said
that-
a while ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
I never felt sorry for us because we weren't any different than anybody else. I mean, from what I heard or what I know, it was October the 29th on a Friday, and that's why they call it Black Friday. That's when the stock market crashed. Now, I may be wrong, you know, but that's what I've always heard.
Now, your grandparents had a farm, but they were, what, 70 miles away, did you say?
Yes,
So
yeah.
they really couldn't help you out much in
Oh
the way
no,
of
there's
food.
times we went down and took food for them, you know.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah.
Now, you had another issue, a physical issue you were dealing with regard to your
My lip.
lip.
Cleft lip.
So let's talk about that a little bit and how that impacted your life.
Well,
I mean, it's something you dealt with since you were born.
yeah, and I was ignored a lot, made fun of a lot, but that's you know, I wasn't the only one, and I was bullied a lot, you know, but I took care of that. He bullied me from like 6th to 9th grade. And then when I got tired of it, one day he grabbed me around the neck and I just picked him up like a baby and just slammed him down the ground with a whole bunch of people around. They all started laughing at him. I embarrassed him so bad he never hit me or picked on me again. So
Was that tough when you were a little kid, though, when you were going like to the 1st grade and stuff?
when I started the 1st grade, the first school I ever went to was called George W. Morris. It was on Chestnut Street across from the City Hospital. And the 1st grade, and we got free food. We got peanut butter sandwiches with Hershey bars in them. And I still like those today. But then we'd go down sometime to the Salvation Army. We'd stand in line, and some of us would get a bucket of soup about the size of a paint can, or some of us would get a bucket of milk about like the size of a paint can, and we'd take it all home, but the whole family would do, you know. Then as we got a little older and a little time, we'd go to the bakery, buy day old bakery goods, and take them home and put them in a big kettle with a colander in there, put them in the colander, and then let the steam come up through the holes, and they'd be just like brand new, you know, fresh in.
Did you have a favorite meal that your mother would make?
I can't really remember a favorite meal, but I've been a meat and potato man all my life.
Uh-huh.
Now, but when my wife and I married, she couldn't cook at all because she was young, and her mother didn't teach her how to cook. But I still like a good meatloaf
Uh-huh.
and mashed potatoes and gravy. That probably would be my best meal.
Tell me a little bit about the school that you went to, your elementary school. Was it very big?
It was just a regular 3-story building One of those up like this, 3 straight buildings, and no gym, no nothing, just a yard to play in. It's still standing, I think. And
Did they have the first 8 grades in that, or the first 6 grades?
I think it was 1 to 6. And then I think you went to 7th, 8th, and 9th in what they call junior high.
Right.
Actually, it was middle school today.
Like today, yeah.
And
Was your class very big?
not that I can remember, John. I guess I just don't really remember it.
And what we're talking about is late 30s here, by the time you were in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade.
About 6 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Because I might being in June, my birthday in June, it kind of set and put me in at the right time.
Right. Can you remember when you started hearing word about World War II getting fired up?
When Pearl Harbor was bombed on December the 7th, 1941, I was 10 years old. And I was across the street, as I said, listening to my buddy's radio. And they said that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and we didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. I mean, it just nobody knew geography back then. And but my brother was in the Army, and I had a couple of cousins that were in the Army. But like I said, I was 10 years old, and when it ended in 45, I was like 14. So I missed that. And then Korean War broke out June of 50, and I was 19, but I went up, like I said, with the...
Now, you had an older brother, right? Your brother was in World War II, is that correct?
Well,
Or he was in the service?
He was in the service, but he kind of got in a little late, you know, so he didn't really go into the war, but he was out before the... Right after.
As a young kid of 9 or 10 years old, when you heard some of this stuff come over the news about the war and people getting killed and planes crashing and bombs going off, what kind of stuff went through your mind?
To be honest with you, John, I didn't really think about it because it was over there, they say,
Yeah.
you know, and it wasn't happening here in America. Now, I know in 1942, because my dad was in construction, we lived in Indiana in a trailer court, and he helped build Camp Atterbury. But we were out one day playing in this, it used to be a golf course, but we were out playing in this, and this plane went over, and this one little guy started crying and running. So evidently he had been overseas, I don't know. But he was scared to death of that plane going over. And I never did talk to him or ask him why, but I just figured it out, you know.
Yeah. When did you move out of Louisville?
Well, 2 or 3 times, to be honest with you.
Tell me about that.
Okay. The first time I ever really moved out of Louisville was in I'm trying to think, February of 50. And we moved to Chicago, my mother, my dad, and me. And that's when I was unloading coal cars for the University of Chicago.
And what was your dad doing?
My dad was a handyman. He was a carpenter, a paper hanger, and all that. He could do anything he wanted to do. And he was working in Chicago, painting and paper hanging and stuff like that for different people.
And what was the reason that you moved away from Louisville?
Like I said, the war broke out in June of 50, and I was registered in Louisville.
Oh, I see.
And so I wanted to go home in case the draft board called me. I wanted to be there. So they didn't call me till like October of 51. But I went up and had the physicals, you know.
Yeah. We got to take a break now. We'll be right back to talk more about that. Don't go away.
Do you love local sports? Whether it's Oxford High School or Parks and Rec, you can buy copies of each game To purchase your copy, call us at 248-628-9658 or give us an email at manager@occtv.org or talk to us at the next game. Hopefully we'll see you there.
Back with J.R. Cundiff. We're talking about when you first moved away from St. Louis. I meant, Louisville rather. Did your father, was it a job situation that caused you to move?
Yes.
Or?
My father, like I said, he could do anything he wanted to. My dad built his own trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And we used that trailer and we went to Indiana, and that's when he was working at Camp Atterbury. He helped build that.
So he chose to go to Indiana because there was work there, is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did he do there in helping to build that camp?
Well, he done several jobs, but he was actually a heavy equipment operator. He drove a bulldozer. And like I said, he was in the crowd out there, and the guy hollers, "Can anybody drive a dozer?" And my dad says, "Yeah, I can." He never even seen one almost, but he could do anything he wanted.
He had a lot of guts.
Oh, he did. He took the thing out in the field and drove it around, and we got it working, and finally he just learned how to operate it.
Now, did your mother work outside the home at that time?
No, my mother never worked outside the home. She didn't have to. She was a stay-at-home mother and a good one.
Tell me about where you lived. You lived in the trailer, correct? At that time?
There then, yeah, we lived in a trailer in Indiana.
Was it in a trailer park, or
Yes.
what was the surroundings like?
Well, it was a trailer park, and I can tell you, it was Driftwood Trailer Court. It was 31 miles south of Indianapolis. It was close to a little town called Taylorville, and it was just a few miles away from Seymour, Indiana. But we lived there until I was, I was 42 there. I was 19. We moved back to Louisville in 43.
What was it like switching schools and everything when you were in that trailer park?
Well, the thing was, I went to Taylorville School in the 5th grade, and I went all through the 5th grade and I passed. So when we moved back to Louisville, I went to the 5th grade, and they said, well, their curriculum isn't as good as ours, so you have to do the 5th grade over. So that put me a year behind, actually, and it wasn't my fault. So as I went through school, I was always like a year behind, technically, but it was just one of those things that happened.
Did you have any more challenges then with regard to the cleft palate and everything?
Oh, always in school, yes. I didn't get that fixed until 1953.
Yeah, when you were older.
Yeah, I had to borrow the money myself and have it done.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that in a minute.
That's all right.
So how long were you in Louisville until your next move?
Well, let's see, went back in 43 from the trailer court, and I was back in Louisville till 49 when I went back to Chicago to unload coal cars.
So that was the next step. And what did your whole family move to Chicago in
Yes.
49?
Yes.
And what did your dad do when you moved to Chicago?
Well, that's what I was saying. He was paper hanger, painter, and done all that.
He did that
yeah,
stuff?
Yeah, he did that on the side.
I was wondering if there was a particular project he was working on at the time.
No, just there was a couple of people at the place where I worked hired him to do work in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd do all kinds of handyman work, you know.
I was just wondering, was it a situation in Louisville where there was just not a whole lot going on there, and he thought, well, let's move to Chicago and see what's going on there? Or did you get news from somebody that there was some opportunity there? Or do you recall that?
Yeah, I do, John. My brother got into trouble, and he had to go to jail for a while, so we went up there to take care of everything.
So he was there.
So he was, you know, so that's why we really went up
Okay.
there
All right.
to take care of my brother.
So how'd you find the coal job?
A friend of my brother's worked there and lived across the street from the power plant. And I used to catch the L, go all the way down to 64th and Dorchester. See how I remember things like that. And he got me the job there and taught me how to do everything. And it was the winter time, so when the coal would freeze, it was a Coke type thing, you know. We had to take a steam pipe and stick down in there and thaw it out. And then we'd have to get inside the coal car and chip the ice off of the thing so it would slide out. And then one day I was looking up and there's about 20 tons of coal come sliding right towards me. I can't get out because you know how coal cars are.
How old were you at this time?
19.
Yeah.
And they'd all laughed at me later because I turned pure white and it got about like here, John, and just dissolved and went out under my feet down the chute. If I'd have I'd been chewed up and everything else, they couldn't have found me.
You were counting your blessings that day.
I guess.
How long did you work for them?
Well, like I said, about February till June 30th.
Okay.
I quit 5 days after the Korean War started.
Ah. Now, was that when you had to go back to Louisville to
Yes.
settle up with the draft thing?
Yes, I did.
Tell me more about that again, would you?
Well, I went back because my draft board was in Louisville.
Right.
And it was Local 45. And I went back so I'd be there because I didn't want to be a draft dodger. And they didn't call me until October of '51. And when I went in for my physicals, I was allergic to horse serum, which is part of tetanus shot. And I couldn't take the tetanus, so they said they couldn't use me because I couldn't take the shots.
That's a shot that everybody has to take in
Yeah.
the military, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It's even today, if I got in a wreck or something, first thing they give you is a tetanus shot.
Right.
So actually, they don't talk about it anymore, but it actually prevents lockjaw.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know, anymore what lockjaw is. I guess your jaw's locked or something. But that just kept me out of the service.
Yeah.
And then I was too old for Vietnam.
We didn't talk about it before.
Whatever.
But did you go through high school?
No, I quit in the 11th grade.
The 11th grade.
Yeah, 6 weeks in the 11th grade I quit.
Were you in Louisville
Yes.
in the 11th grade?
Yes,
Or?
I went to DuPont Manual High School.
Okay.
But like I said, I quit in the 11th grade to help my family with the money problems.
So as a matter of finances,
Yes.
that was the reason.
Yeah.
Were you ever tempted to go back to school?
Oh yeah, I went back in 1976, I think. Me and the wife both, and I finished, got my GED, and then after I got my GED, I went back and got my high school diploma. It didn't help me in my job because I already had a good job, but it was just a personal thing that I wanted to do.
Okay, let's go back to your situation at the draft board, but we're gonna take a little break before we get
Go
into
ahead,
that.
do whatever
okay?
you want, John.
All right. This concludes the first episode with our friend J.R. Cundiff. Thanks for being with us. We're going to do this for another half hour, so please join us then.
Here's to the things that can keep us safe. Those we use all the time with hardly a thought. Those that are silently standing by to save our lives. And now, those that we carry with us everywhere we go. Many mobile devices will now bring you wireless emergency alerts, real-time information directly from local sources you know and trust. With the unique sound and vibration, you'll be in the know wherever you are.